People can smell bullshit and they can smell earnest and honest intentions.
Chris Gibbs, the owner of Union in LA, which is probably one of the most prominent and influential retail doors in the fashion space. It really does an amazing job of curating selections of upcoming designers mixed with off the beaten path high-end brands from all over the globe.
Work for the job you want, not the job you have. If you're here, you can be on your phone 6 hours a day and you give me 2 hours of work. You just wasted 6 hours where you didn't build experience, work ethic, your career. You think you got over on me, you got over on me.
Was there a particular moment where you realized how influential this culture was to overall culture as we know it?
Another great question. Damn.
To whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. Culture is the heartbeat within our lives, and it's at the core of so many things. While we live in a time when we are starving for wisdom, I welcome you to your wisdom retreat at Culture Raises Us. Today's guest, Chris Gibbs, is the owner of Union in LA, which is probably one of the most prominent and influential retail doors in the fashion space. That really does an amazing job of curating selections of upcoming designers mixed with off the beaten path high-end brands from all over the globe. Chris has definitely played a major role in shaping our youth culture of today. And before we have him share some of his insights, I want to start with our main question. When you hear culture, what does that mean to you?
I think it's one of those words that's unfortunately become kind of overused. Culture and community kind of go hand in hand these days. It's also been kind of co-opted, I guess, you know. But outside of the fact that it's been co-opted, it still means something very important to me. And I guess it's kind of like the fabric of your kind of intentions. I'm big on intentions. I'm big on the why, not necessarily the what. And I feel like culture, to me, is the answer to the why.
I'm so glad you said the why and not the what. And because there's been a richness in the things that you've obviously done, and now it makes sense that you would correlate a why with culture, and I would hope that many more would take on that approach in general.
Yeah.
Because I think we've lost the substance in so many things, and people are just doing to just do, but there's no real rich why behind it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who know you know about the richness, and I'm hoping we get to expose a little bit more of that. And, you know, even in the space of like footwear and apparel, which obviously you've a significant part of shaping that culture as the destination that you've built and the visionary that you are, I would love to get a sense from you. Was there a particular moment where you realized how influential this footwear and apparel culture was to overall culture as we know it?
I think it's evolved. It's continuous. It's still living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm still every day learning more and more. At some point, I think a brother, I was in New York, maybe I'd moved to LA already. So this has to be mid-aughts is when, so it took a while. You know what I mean? For me to acknowledge how important and how connected this all is. But a brother comes up to me and he's got like a really like fashion forward kit on, right? And this is in the mid-aughts. And he's like, and he's like, yo, Chris Gibbs. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yo, it's an honor to meet you, blah, blah, blah. He was like, yo, I just got to tell you, man, like I'm from the BX. I grew up kind of like typical, you know, street kid from the BX where like how I dress myself now, I wouldn't have been allowed to.
That's
My
right.
community would have stopped me. You know what I mean? And you allowed, like, in seeing how you have kind of attacked that space, you've allowed me to be able to like express myself in a way that I otherwise wouldn't be. And I just want to thank you. And so it made me stop and appreciate him, you know what I mean? And then zoom out a little bit and see like, yeah, there's a couple things that like, that have been really important to me. I want to be able to express myself. And the number one of the easiest ways is through how I dress, how I carry myself, from my hairstyle to, you know, and that's important to me, you know, and that's been something that's allowed me to travel the world in a weird way. You know what I mean? And I want that same agency for everyone. And unfortunately, I've found out over the years that not everyone has that. Not everyone has the knowledge of self, which ties back into your first question. The culture, the freedom to do that. And so when he approached me and kind of made me kind of step back and zoom out and see just how important these stories are, this communication is, to just being yourself and being able to have the agency to kind of roam this earth and be curious and live and learn. So yeah.
Yeah, you talk about knowledge itself. It's funny, I was just talking to somebody on set today about, every one of us is sent here with a gift. And unfortunately, a lot of these gifts don't ever get to be shared for different circumstances. And I think even one of those gifts is part of the knowledge of self and embracing the knowledge of self and being your unapologetic self in certain spaces. And I look back, I remember, you were going to Japan, I feel like way before that was a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that taps into this knowledge of self and being okay with stepping out. And back then, this is a stepping out and doing something. What you going to Japan for, bro?
Yeah. But also what one of the first gifts Japan gave me was the way they appreciated our culture. So I went there and I saw when I first started going to Japan, probably 99, right? And so streetwear still isn't called streetwear yet.
Nope.
And it's still kind of nobody really knows what it is, right? And you would basically go shopping and it's like a t-shirt printed on Hanes blank, that kind of thing. And I went to Japan and they got that t-shirt that costs $20. You know what I mean? You would go buy folded on marble with they're treating it like it's luxury. They're treating our culture in this, they're really upholding it in this beautiful way. And that's, I guess it's kind of almost coming back to your second question. That's also a time when I was like, oh, this is different. They really, to see how they're appreciating our culture, we don't even appreciate it in that same way.
In that same way.
Yeah.
But even their culture, I find, was so rich.
Yeah, it is.
They are true to their roots, unapologetically, true to the disciplines, the character, the commitment to certain things, and then the cleanliness and the pristineness of everything. I have so many stories, even when working with Pharrell and Nigo.
Yeah.
And I mean, you do Japan with Nigo
I'm sure.
One day you're in a Phantom going down the smallest streets you've ever seen in the world, and he's in this huge car, and it's this amazing juxtaposition of the culture that he's very much respected in and he respects, but the adaptation of some of these other cultures of the world, like Phantoms, and you never saw anybody else in one. And I'd be worried, yo, is he gonna scratch this car going down these streets? But it's
not at all, by the way.
Never. I look back at those who might not know your journey. You literally started working at Union in New York.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you never thought that one day you would then be the owner of Union, right? So what was that flip in your mind of literally and figuratively now taking the keys in an ownership? Because that's a whole different mindset, dog. And you were working the floor in New York. That might have been one of the early days when I met you.
Well, I got to give a lot of respect to James Jebby and Marianne Fusco, because one of the things they did from day one was that word I like. They gave me a lot of agency to be my true self. I had used to working at jobs where you had to kind of assimilate to what the company wanted you to be and kind of fit in. And the first day I got hired, the first day Marianne was like, here's the keys. Here's how to lock up. I'm out.
It's
Call me if you need me. Yeah. Page me if you need me, by the way, just to date it. You know what I mean? And play whatever music you want. And, they championed.
Which was so dope. You were down in the village.
Which now is of course, but back then.
Nah, it was, you came in for, there was a vibe in there.
Yeah. And so from day one, I got to make that space my own, which was incredible. For me, and I basically learned on the job and grew as I learned, a world I had no idea about, not one clue. I kind of I tell people I got that job. It could have been at the Gap. I just needed a job to put me through college, and that's I blessed and highly favored. That's the job I got, but I could have been at the Gap, and life would have been very different.
Very,
for
very
me,
different.
So I really appreciate starting there, and yeah, I guess I'm proud to say I'm that I'm like that, started in the mailroom and now I own the company.
Right.
Like I started at the bottom.
The bottom.
You know what I mean? Like t-shirt folder.
But there has to be something has to click at some point
Yeah.
for you to be prepared to step into that, right? Because as we know, nothing is ever given.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever given. Everything is earned. And there has to be a mindset shift that you had to adopt to also be ready to step into, now I'm taking the keys again.
Yeah.
For the whole.
We were talking about it before we started, but I had a really strict father, and so West Indian father, so work ethic was really, burned into me, and so I think what really helped me early on, it still helps me to this day, was like just a really strong work ethic. I knew I was doing this with intention, but before I knew I was doing this, I was working as if I owned the place from day one. They gave me that agency that allowed me to make it mine, and then I met that with and I'm gonna work at this place as if it's mine, and and so later on, like maybe 10 years later, when I moved to LA and started working at the LA store, I started to realize oh, this is now my career. At first it was a job to get me through college, and then once I graduated college, I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do with my life, and I like traveling the world, so I'm gonna stick with this for a little while. It was kind of like that. By year 10, when I moved to LA, I was like, oh, I guess this is my career.
This is my thing.
This is not what I went to school for. It wasn't what I had dreamed of, but by now I'm, this is my career. And that's when I started intentionally, I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna be buddy with the bookkeeper, so I can learn how to keep books. Because at some point,
a sponge. Now you're becoming a sponge.
I'm gonna learn. Before it was mine, I built our ecom. I'm gonna learn ecom and figure it out. Earlier on, I was self-taught on Illustrator because I want to be able to do some designs here and there. And so I started with more intention, learning everything I could, knowing that one day I might not be working for them and I might need to do this on my own, and how am I going to be able to do it? And that day came almost as if it was by design, because I basically was I felt like I hit a glass ceiling and I was going to leave. And I told Eddie Cruz, hey, I think I'm leaving. I'm going to kind of do my own thing. And he was like, well, if you're going to do your own thing, at this point, maybe basically run it already.
Yeah.
If you leave, I don't know. Why don't you just take it over? And it was a perfect situation because he was already, by then he had Undefeated, and all his energy was going into Undefeated, and deservedly so. And so, and Union back then, to this day, Union is the tough one out of that little family of Streetwear, Mafia, Supreme, Stussy, Undefeated. Union's the tough one. It's always a tough one.
When you say tough, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you mean by that, because when I look at it, it was always a very unique staple, and it too represented an unapologetic nature to it. You do such a great job of the curating of brands and items that, I could walk in there one day and see a $1,500 T-shirt, and I'd be like, ooh, but I'd be like, no, it makes sense though for here, right? And anywhere else might not, but I can also see a dope $30 T-shirt or a $30 pair of socks, whatever. It was an amazing experience that I got to tell you, every time I used to come to LA, sometimes I just walk it just to get a feel for the experience, right? To see things that I might not have seen anywhere else, but to see it in an environment together is so compelling. And, as I think about that, I think about, you've seen this industry evolve and change and shift, drastically, because you've been at the epicenter of helping to shape it. And again, another conversation just having with one of the youngins on set today, where I was talking about how I was an Econ, and you remember Econs with Nike, where we'd educate the retailers on, hey, why are we paying so much money for this shoe? Well, here's the air, here's the mesh, here's the rubber outsole, here's the Phylon midsole that gives a cushion, And this kid looked at me like, what you mean you had to do that? People weren't just buying the shoes because they were fresh for $150? I said, oh, no, I'm sorry. There was a time where people were like, yo, I'm not spending $100 for a pair of shoes, and we had to provide them with all the tools to validate and justify the why. I'd love to get from you, what are the things you've seen in the evolution of this industry, good and bad, over the years, and kind of, is there something that you're excited to see hopefully it go to?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a term I use called streetwear straight no chaser, which is like your
Streetwear.
basic graphic T-shirt printed, baseball hat printed, sweatshirt printed, like that, and at the entry level price point, right?
Accessible.
And so when I first started, that was the lion's share of what we were making, what we were selling, and that was kind of what everybody, and that was new. That was like, before that, you would get a T-shirt and it would be like a corporate logo of the brand you like, or the team you're following. I was a Hoyas, so I buy a Hoyas tee, or Timberland if you're, whatever the brand is, Nike logo, whatever. And so for me, what streetwear represented early on was like, no, there's a message, there's a community there's a lifestyle. And so it wasn't about logo. So early on, streetwear straight no chaser wasn't about the logo at all. It was about like something unique that you would otherwise not find on a T-shirt. It was counterculture, so it was kind of an inside joke amongst a very tight-knit community of people, and it was fun. It's like, oh, I get that T-shirt. Now, my favorite T-shirt we sold at Union back in the day was that I was like, oh, this is everything. And like when I saw it, again, for someone listening to this now who's younger, you've been raised on this is normal for you, but this wasn't normal. It was a Pervert, this brand out of Miami, actually, Pervert T-shirt, one of the early streetwear brands. And it was just a picture of like two like kids sitting on a stoop, like kind of ice grilling the camera. And then on the back of the T-shirt, it says, suckers be swearing that they staring is going to scare me. And I was just like, this is and I don't know, if someone listened to this, that might not mean anything. Maybe you had to be there, but to get a shirt like that, I was, that was my favorite T-shirt. I have it somewhere. But so that's streetwear straight no chaser. Then Japan early on is the main supporter of that. We actually, by we I mean Americans, and that community was so small here that we actually had to live off of the Japanese coming and buying it. They had kind of like, I don't know this because I didn't, but from what I believe, like early jazz had to be supported by, like, they had to come to France to get appreciated and to make money, right? Like that's why Billie Holiday's, is in Paris or whatever, so same thing with streetwear. Early on, it was Japanese supporting. I might sit in that store and 3 people walk in one day, 2 people buy 2 T-shirts. The third guy is a Japanese guy. He's buying 30 and he's taking them all back to Japan, So, and then you start getting Japan's take on our thing, and their attention to detail is a little higher. So they're going to print on like a loop wheeled hoodie, and it's going to be, instead of being $80, it's $180, right? But it's like you touch it, you feel it, this is a better thing, And so for a long time, there's this back and forth, there's this play between like American traditional streetwear and then Japan's adaptation of that, which is a higher end version. It's still a hoodie, a T-shirt, a baseball hat, a pair of jeans, but made at a higher level, right? With more attention to detail at a better quality. And so now there's a luxe streetwear, but it wasn't even, wasn't even titled that. And that price point, then the next evolution is, well, if you're spending $500 on a hoodie now, right? You're now at like, Madison Ave pricing. So now you've got this kid who started maybe his or her journey, in streetwear straight no chaser, a $24 T-shirt and a $60 hoodie. And then they saw the Japanese adaptation in our store, and it's double, triple the price. And maybe they saved up and they got it. Like, oh, the quality, like you said, the provenance of this can't be denied.
Craftsmanship, another level.
All right, so now they're used to spending, and maybe they saved up, they got a little guap, however they're going to get it, funny sidebar, but like early on, we basically paid our rent from drug dealers. These are the only ones that can afford the shit we were selling. But so now you saved up, and now you're getting the Japanese version, and now you might not have known of like high fashion, of luxury goods, because that wouldn't, but now you're buying something at a similar price point, and now you understand quality and what to look for in stitching, in washes, in the fabric. And so now, and the Japanese stuff we were bringing in was super limited. We couldn't get a lot.
Right.
And so as a business, capitalism, America, we needed to find something to have in the store on a Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
So now we start importing high fashion because the attention to detail's there, right? The quality's there. And so now, because we've cultivated this customer that likes a better thing, and so now we're bringing in high fashion, and I'm buying high fashion with a streetwear lens. So I'm going and being like, oh, actually, I don't know, Tom Brown, Comme des Garçons, they make a flannel shirt. They make a hoodie. The consumer, my consumer, wouldn't have known it.
That's right.
So we start buying it like it's a streetwear brand. Right,
And
I'm not buying their
that
suit
environment as such.
per se.
Yep.
I'm not which they make. I'm not buying their flowy architectural slacks. I'm buying their fleece, their button-down shirts, their denim. You know what I mean? And so now my customer's learning about high fashion, next evolution, and then high fashion is learning about this new customer. So to me, we've talked about the good. You said, well, talk about something bad. I don't know it's bad. It's just adversity, let's say. The big powered fashion brands from Europe now know we exist. And now know how to make product for us, right? And they've got like, $1 million, talk to Pharrell. Well, what's the budget he has for a fashion show? And so today, right? The small streetwear brand is competing for the same market share as Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And so that's a negative in that, like, it's just hard for a small streetwear brand to come up. They've got to, they're now competing. So before we were the option outside of or
That's
around
right.
or in opposition to, now it's just one-to-one competing, and they've got huge budgets and marketing and
But
all
there's
the
some
things,
accountability
and it's really
now on
tough.
consumers.
Exactly. You said it. You've got to support some of the smaller brands. And it's nothing against the bigger brands, but I'm just saying, like, or else they're not going to exist. So that's one of the things that's like more adversity. The other thing I'll say is, just going back to my early representation of streetwear. Streetwear, to me, the genesis of it is this open and creative communication that's directly juxtaposed against what it's coming out against, which is like the logo of brand X on your shirt. And the upside of this is all those streetwear brands made such a great name for themselves that eventually people wanted their logo. Nowadays, you're going to buy the logo of the streetwear brand, and you're largely, the consumer's not into and not supporting a more creative, this is just an interesting political stance or cultural stance or whatever. You're just buying the logo of the brand now. So streetwear kind of grew and evolved as an opposition against just the logo, but they've now grown so much that they are now the logo. The last thing I'll say, just to answer your question in totality, is what am I looking forward to? I think right now, let's call it Gen Z. I believe Gen Z is similar in what their appetite for what they're looking for as Gen X was when streetwear started.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to seeing like kind of a renaissance of the sensibilities of early streetwear, if that makes sense. And I'll say we're in it now. There's a good part and a bad part. I think the creativity, the freedom is unparalleled. You walk around and see how these kids dress. We couldn't have dressed like that. We would have been clowned by our best friends, like, yo, you wearing open-toe sandals or square-toe shoes or whatever. The freedom is incredible, and I love it. If you're a kid now, my kids have painted
nails,
fingernails, all that shit, and it's all good, and I love that for them.
Yeah.
Right? So I love that freedom, and that's what I'm looking forward to, is how that freedom evolves. I think that the unfortunate part is, as a businessman, it's hard to put that in a box.
Yeah.
So, and I've never wanted I've never wanted to be put in a box personally, but I have made my business and, made money and made my living on finding a box to kind of put things in.
Right.
You know what I mean? When we talked about union being the difficult one, the problem with union is, as I've run it, it's it's this bittersweet relationship of where I don't want to put things in a box. I want it to be free, but they have to be boxed a little bit in order for us to like make money and just pay rent. You know, like, so that's my tug of war. That's my struggle at all times, is finding the balance there. And it's every day. It's an everyday challenge.
You said something, a lot of amazing right there, but you said the early sensibility, the sensibility of streetwear, the early mindset.
Yeah.
And I immediately ran to that because I think about, I'm often talking about transferable skill sets. Because, you know, a lot of us come up with some innate, you know, abilities, given our backgrounds, that add so much value to so much of this world. And you know where I'm speaking of. And I think a lot of that is transferable into a number of different, what do you want to call it, industries or cultures. And when you said that sensibility of early streetwear, it led me to a question that I really wanted to ask. And I think this leans into, you know, given the state of things, you know, what are you doing specifically to ensure that the cultures and the spaces that we frequent and are being nurtured, how are they being nurtured properly, right? Because again, we've put a lot in. We've helped create.
Yeah.
And so I would ask, you know, what do you also recommend for other creatives and other consumers to do on their end? And when you said that sensibility of early streetwear, that was such a rich statement that is very transferable into today's world, which is a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
So, like, how do you see that?
A lot of our corporate partners have come to us, and the niche we serve is we're going to give them better access to community. We're going to give them better access to,
because they can't get it without you,
right? And a lot of times they'll come in with like kind of a structured plan around how we're going to do that, and we have to donate to this organization. We have to do, like, it's very like, for lack of a better term, it's very performative. And I have to. I find myself often having to fight and being like, no, you don't understand. Our existence by itself serves the community by the type of brands we're bringing in, right? From smaller designers and mixing it with bigger ones to give that relationship is important, right? If we were just small brands, then we would just be this kind of like mom and pop boutique. We now match them and juxtapose them against bigger brands so that they're kind of playing on the same playground. And now there's visibility and sharing going on, and it allows these brands to grow. And so I think we, you know, knowing that like people like us, right, didn't have these opportunities, and making sure we continue to give those opportunities, give them their agency to communicate by who we're buying, making sure that I try to always consider the consumer. I'll give you an example. You know, well, every time we do like one of our big kind of collaborative sneaker drops with Nike or Jordan, they're very hard to get, you know, and we do a local raffle here in Los Angeles where we try to make it a lot easier. And I would argue, like, if your chances of being able to purchase these really hard to get shoes globally, that, hey, I can't solve the global part, but like if you live in LA and you show up on that day, you're most likely getting a pair of shoes.
Dope.
And people really appreciate that. You know what I mean? And that's like just simple, like, you know, my career and what I feel is like my superpower. And I've talked to other people who also share this same superpower enough where like, yo, it's not like a secret. It's actually foundational.
Share that this is your superpower, or
and
that
they also have the same superpower from the same experience, which is like, so if I talk to Jerry Lorenzo, Jerry will be like, yo, I worked at Diesel and I was shop staff at Diesel. And that is like face to face with the customer. And you're seeing daily what they're looking for, what they're not, what makes them change their mind, what catches their eye. I did that for 20 fucking years at this store. And so I really feel like I know what the consumer wants. And so I'm designing, I'm marketing, I'm activating through the lens of like, what does the consumer want? So much so that, when I'm in Portland having meetings and we're deciding what our offense is going to be on the next shoe or the next release, a lot of times there's maybe a really good idea, But it's like, but the consumer doesn't want that. That's not feeding them.
Because there's no consumers in
Right?
that room.
Right. But that's what I think my superpower, I'm representing the consumer. So one of the things that's allowed me to be successful is I feel like I go into these rooms, I go into these meetings, and I'm representing the consumer. And guess what? The consumer's me and my community that has been underserved and you know what I mean? And so, and maybe someone hearing this, I hope I'm communicating it well. That might sound very, I don't know, conceited.
No, it's not at all.
I'm trying to represent my
Listen, you're not the
community,
voice for every black human being on the because we get in the rooms and they think you're the voice of all. No, but you are a prominent voice that should be heard in those spaces. Because guess what? I've been on the other side of that table.
Yeah.
Where, the brand of trying to say this is what the consumer wants, and you're absolutely right.
And there's really creative Harvard, MIT grads up in there with some really cool ideas, but I'm like, sometimes it hits. But I'm like, sometimes I got to be like, yo, like we just had to have a huddle on a future project. And I'm like, because are we really doing, we had there was an idea at the genesis of this that was interesting. Let's call it that. And then as the development of this product has come, I think the product is different than the idea. It's just how it organically came about, right? And we're about and so we're about to now we're about to launch the product, and there's kind of a narrative around it that's like not true to the genesis because the product developed in a different way.
That's right.
Hey guys, stop, time out. Let's have a huddle. Let's reframe this.
Yep.
And thankfully, people agreed. And we were able to pivot, and I think that pivot is going to make a world of difference.
So the thankful, though, is not just for the people agreeing. The thankful is that you utilized your voice.
Yes.
Because
and I feel
if you didn't,
yeah,
these things would have gone all the way left.
And that comes with experience. There are times when I haven't. And now I have, and here's the proof.
Yep.
Here's the receipt. I didn't speak up here. We went with this and it didn't work.
And look what happened.
You know what I mean? And so when I called the huddle, I was like, look, there's a partnership here and you guys are a big part of it. So I just want to make sure we're having the conversation. So I know when people talk about, hey, is there someone in the room? Is there someone at that table? I don't always need to have it go my way, but I always want that conversation to be had. And as long as I feel like I've been listened to, I can walk away with whatever the end result is and whatever the decision's made that a lot of times isn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
But all right, y'all listen to me.
Yeah.
And
right. Well, you know what? You mentioned community in a lot of that, and you being a reflection of the community. And I think your boutique serves as a hub for the local community. How do you believe having this connected and engaged community, both locally and online, kind of contributes to the success and sustainability of the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It's who we are. We're not successful without it, full stop. I really believe that there's this, and I don't know, maybe there's a term for it that I'm unaware of, but there's this energy, right, that I'm the retailer and I have a relationship with the consumer, but it could be flipped, right? It's more universal, this energy. And people just can smell bullshit.
Yep.
And they can smell earnest and honest intentions.
Yep.
And I think how I've tried to run our company is in making sure there's just an earnest idea, an honest representation of that idea. We've never been most people say, even from day one, like we've never been a store that tried to, oh yeah, that looks dope on you because we need the sale. Does it look dope? Nah, that don't look dope, man. Look for something else. I've sent people to stores up the block. We don't have something that's going to work for you today. But that look, but they do. But I remember, yo, dude, I should have been getting royalties early on. So Union, New York, we sold PRPS denim from day one, and it was like a favorite.
That was great.
Great denim. And then when I moved out to LA, it was sold at the Denim Bar at American Rag. And people would come in and, for example, when I first moved here, most of the denim that we carried was Japanese denim.
Yes.
And there's certain body types, it just doesn't
work.
fit.
Yeah.
Right? And so people come in and they try and I'd be like, dude, it just ain't working for you. But I know what you want. Go to American Rag. They have PRPS denim. You're good.
Right.
Hey, man, And that person may or may not get a t-shirt or a hat or a sneaker from us at the time, but they appreciate, like, I got your back. I'm looking out for you.
'Cause you
I
are
want
the
you to be
community.
fly. I just want you to be. Our purpose is to make sure. We used to have I used to do a blog post on which I stopped, but the shit I do to make you look fly. And it would be kind of like the whole premise behind it was like, I'm traveling to Paris. I'm traveling to Japan, Tokyo, London, Italy. I'm traveling all over the world, and I'm suffering. Like, it's such a hard work to get on the plane and go to Japan, and I'm slaving away. I'm working hard so you could be fly. But then showing you amazing pictures of like Tokyo and Paris, and but this is just hard work for me. That's all I'm doing,
You have put a definition on a community that was so rich that I hope people captured, because you reflected in so many ways on the surface level that everybody knows, and we know what union means, and we know what you mean to the culture. But what you just shared about, we don't have what you want, what you need, or what you're looking for. Yeah. However, here's where you can find it. That's a real community leader.
Because
but some people just be like, nah, we don't have it, but here, let me get you something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the richness. Yeah. And I hope that was truly grasped by people of what community really entails.
Yeah.
How are you really helping the collective, regardless if you benefit from it or
I think,
not?
Not to sound like a, grumpy old man, but I think our core customers from a particular era really got it and helped us grow. And I'm really thankful, because we don't grow without the support of our core customers. We're having a tough time translating that to this newer generation. And I take full responsibility for it. I'm not like, oh, fuck those kids. They don't know what's up. We're just having a tough time. That's something we're going to have to figure out. Is how to communicate that same thing, because they've been brought up in a different space. A lot of them have been brought up kind of almost spoon-fed. I remember like back in the day, Supreme did they did a Black Panther T-shirt, right? And like this is early aughts, maybe late 90s actually. I was like, I have to have that T-shirt, but
this is way before the movie, people.
Yeah, no doubt. No, Black Panther, like the Panther.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, not the comic book. Sorry. Thank you for that correction. And I was like, this is the hardest T-shirt. I need to have this T-shirt. But for me, I knew I couldn't rock it if I didn't do the math first. And so I went and seized the time so I could wear that T-shirt. And I don't think that's happening today, right? The kids rocking a band T-shirt because it's the cool T-shirt to wear, the band that they don't even know who the band is. They don't even know the music, or whatever, So I'd like for them to do their own math, but we're in a time where it's hard for people to commit to that, to that homework.
Fair. You've shared so much, but we always kind of end with sharing what are the 3 seeds you would leave with the stewards of culture moving forward, because you and I both know we're at a critical point. And culture, I mean, for me, obviously, is a huge through line and of all things, I think. And if we do this right, we can change a lot of what's going on worldly. But I'd love to hear from you if there are 3 things that you could leave this next generation or these stewards of culture moving forward. What would it be?
One of the things I try to tell people when they ask me, I hope this answers the question, is this is probably the most important thing for me. And I should have this like down to a science on how I communicate it, but I never do, and I always fumble all over my words, so forgive me. But like early on in my career, I'm a mixed kid from Canada, from not even the city you never heard of, Canada. I don't think I had any special relationship with like culture or fashion or music or anything. I was just a regular kid coming up, like we all are. Like what LeBron has, I'm a kid from Akron.
That's right.
Right? And that messaging really resonated to me. I'm not from Akron, right? Obviously. But like I knew what he was trying to say. I'm just like you. And even though I've got the best ever dude on the court or arguably top 3, whatever, I'm not trying to start that debate today. But I'm just saying, like, even though I've got these skills that you might not have, like I have a story to tell. It's mine. It's unique to me, and people want to hear it. You know, and so what I try to tell people is like, yo, when I'm designing, when I'm just trying to tell my stories. And I try to tell young people coming up, you have a story to tell. I don't care where you're from, rich, poor, black, white, anything. You've got a story to tell, your life experience that's interesting. You know what I mean? And so tell your story. Have your agency to be you. So that's a big thing for me. You know, I used to like the big thing, do you? You know, that could be boiled down into do you, right? But the zoomed out version is having agency and to be able to tell your story. That's hard. It's hard for people to be like, people care what I have to say. People care about where I come from, Ottawa. Like who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? Like, but being raised in Ottawa, kind of far away from where the action was, allowed me to look at it in a different way and, you know, and come with a new perspective and an understanding and appreciation for it. So that's a big thing to me. That's one. Damn,
that's a
we
good
got
one.
two more.
Listen.
So do you? I think I mentioned it earlier on. Work ethic is really important. Yep. You know, I worked. I think there's an adage like, dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
That's
Isn't
right.
that right? Mine's a little different. Work for the job you want, not the job you have. I tell that to my staff. It's hard because I'm the man, right? We always hear about the man. And I've got to be the man at work. Yeah. But I try to tell that to my staff. Like, yo, if you're here and you've worked it so that you can be on your phone watching social media for 6 hours a day and you give me 2 hours of work and you can get over where I'm right, hey, more power to you. I'm not a time clock watcher. That's not what I'm into. And you might think you're getting over on me. Like you're getting over, you just wasted 6 hours where you didn't build experience, work ethic, your career. You think you got over on me, you got over on you. I'm sitting here today because I gave 10 hours when I needed 8. When my boss required 8, I gave 12. You know what I mean? And that gave me experience, understanding, a work ethic that now I could build my own career off of. So if you're in here goofing off, cool. And you can get over on me, if that's what you want to call it, whatever, right? And maybe you are, maybe you're not. But you're actually doing yourself a disservice. You're not learning what you need to do.
Listen,
you know,
you obviously dropped the mic on that one. And, you know, you're obviously such a great reflection of that. Because you look at your story when you started with New York, and I thank you for sharing that. And more importantly, I thank you for sharing that knowledge with that next generation. And I ask that you continue to be who you are in this space, keep your why at the forefront of all things, and just thank you for what you've done and will continue to do for the culture, bro.
Thank you,
man.
I
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you. We truly appreciate your support because it helps us fulfill our mission of promoting cultural awareness and personal development. Please click the subscribe button below to help ensure and solidify our mission.